5 Sinister rules a haunted night train conductor discovered to survive the spine-chilling journey. Jack stood on the rickety platform as icy winds howled through the gaping cracks of the abandoned train depot. The sky loomed heavy with dark clouds, pregnant with the weight of unshed rain. He could feel his heart thumping erratically against his ribs, the cold air stealing his breath in agonizing bursts. The legend of the midnight train whispered in the corners of Briarwood, a town long plagued by despair. It was where hope vanished like smoke before a tempest. The flickering light above cast twitching shadows on the rusted train cars, their menacing silhouettes hunched in readiness for a hunt. Jack's mouth dried up, he could almost taste the fear lurking in the air, thick enough to coat his tongue. The first rule clawed at him with a sinister grace: never board the train alone. His panic surged but was outweighed by desperation. He was a father without a job, an estranged husband cloaked in shame. His daughter waited at home, her tiny figure anxiously fixed by the window, a scared silhouette against the fading daylight. Would she understand? Did she know how fleeting their survival was? He gulped down dread, forcing his feet forward into the darkness. As he stepped inside, the metallic scent of rust mingled with something far more rancid: fear itself. The door slammed shut behind him with a definitive thud and he stumbled into the conductor's cabin. The note lay crumpled on the desk, yellowed with age. 5 Sinister rules it read. He dismissed it as local folklore, yet unease spiraled in his gut as the train lurched forward into the abyss. Jack's fingers trembled as he fiddled with the controls. The rhythm of the wheels clattered beneath him, but a dissonant echo lingered, a murmur that spread like poison through the carriages. He leaned forward, squinting into the dimness. Figures flitted past the cracks, shadowy remnants of lost souls haunting the aisles. Panic seized him like a vice as he heard whispers crescendo into chilling laughter that suffocated hope. Memories of Briarwood's crumbling shops invaded his mind, his friends' faces twisted grotesquely, their accusations echoing in the creaking metal, a gallery of betrayal. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The train screeched to a halt. Jack could feel the air grow denser, the cold settling like a funeral shroud over his shoulders. The second rule rang in his mind, vicious and unyielding: always keep your distance. A figure loomed closer, eyes glinting with an unsettling familiarity. Was it his wife? No, it couldn't be. She melted into the shadows, the cracks in her voice trailing like smoke as she called his name. Yet, dusk fell deeper. He realized the faces staring back at him were molded from his past, each a reminder of his failures, whispered secrets of dreams shattered. As he glanced around, the train's interior morphed into a strange echo of his life. The third rule whispered, never forget your past. Despair clawed at his throat, panic juggling with nostalgia. Suddenly, the lights flickered and dimmed, shadows swirling like a snake ready to strike. The train lurched forward once more, and the deep rumble reminded him of the sins lurking around him, ghosts ready to judge him. Jack stood at the precipice, pulse racing, dread tightening around him like a noose. With what remained of his sanity, he flung himself toward the last horrifying rule echoing in the darkness: never trust the face you know. The walls seemed to close in as shadows coiled like vipers, and he could feel the weight of betrayal surrounding him. In the swirling blackness, the very air felt alive with menace, questioning his choices and probing for weakness as the train hurtled into the abyss. Who could he trust when survival beckoned from the darkness? The train jolted violently, the interior igniting with a terrifying light that flickered like a dying star. Jack's instincts screamed at him to run, every muscle in his body begging for escape. But the pressure of the oppressive air clung to him like wet cloth, each breath a struggle against an unseen force. With a pulse hammering in his ears, Jack fumbled for the door he'd entered through. He stumbled, the rhythm of the train throwing him off balance as tendrils of darkness slithered through the cabin. They beckoned to him, the whispers melodic yet filled with malice, drawing closer like a tide creeping over a forgotten shore. Images of his daughter flooded his mind, her wide eyes like portals to innocence, her soft laughter a stark contrast to the nightmare closing in. Then the rumble of wheels transitioned to a deafening silence. The train shuddered to a halt, but it felt less like a stop and more like a trap. A new rule surfaced in his frantic thoughts: beware the silence that lingers. The whispers had ceased. An eerie calm wrapped around him, each tick of the clock hanging on the wall sounding like a countdown to inevitable doom. Jack. The voice was tender, cut with an edge of anguish. He spun around, dread coiling in his gut. There she was, a figure standing at the far end of the corridor. Light poured from above, catching the outline of a woman he'd once loved. It looked like her, smelled like her, but there was something distinctly wrong. Her eyes were hollow, devoid of warmth, and her smile twisted into a grotesque parody of affection. "Come closer, Jack," she beckoned, her arms outstretched as if to embrace him. Hope flared momentarily, colliding violently with the cold reality pigeonholed by fear. He remembered the rule: never trust the face you know. He fought the rising desire to go to her, step by agonizing step, with the past pulling him like quicksand. "No. I can't," Jack shouted, backing away, pulse racing. Each step away shifted the world around him, shadows blending, distorting. Panic surged as he perceived ghostly figures gathering at the periphery, a crowd of remorseful souls, heads bowed, mourning the choices that led to their spectral existence. They whispered his name, a chilling chorus. Jack's heart raced with the understanding that these were not simply phantoms, they embodied his past mistakes, his regrets. The lights flickered again, a heartbeat of energy trembling against the dark. "Stay away!" he howled, pushing against the rancid air, the taste of despair filling his mouth. Suddenly, the windows fogged over, their surfaces swirling like mist. Suddenly, they revealed scenes that struck his heart like an iron hammer, images of his daughter, alone, looking out the window of their home, searching for a father who never seemed to return. A flash of clarity struck him, a haunting realization. If he failed to confront the past, to embrace the darkest parts of himself, he would never see her again. He took a deep breath, letting the dread wash over him, resolute. "I have to face it." He shouted into the void, swallowing the bitter fear, forcing his feet forward, inching back toward her, but as he stepped closer, the familiar figure shimmered and shifted, unraveling like a strand of mist. "No, Jack. You can't be here. You should have known." The voice twisted, fractures splintering through the echoes, and the others hissed, a wave of disappointment washing over him. The door behind him creaked ominously, a reminder of the unwelcoming world outside. Jack's heart raced as he glanced back at the crowd of shadows, their faces cycling through the tapestry of his guilt. He was losing control, and the cabin began to spin, drowning him in a sea of horror and desperation. Was there a way out? Trusting an illusion? Or was it too late? The walls vibrated with an unholy reverberation. In that moment of uncertainty, the night stretched on, dark and heavy, an invitation to judge his truth, and in that cavernous swirl of dread, he asked himself, what if the darkness wanted him to see the truth, not just run from it? A light flashed again, a new revelation waiting to unfold in the night. The air changed, thick with a damp chill that seeped into Jack's bones. The shadows flickered and danced like enraged spirits, swirling around him, their whispers now a cacophony of rage and despair. The figure, his wife or what remained of her, dissolved into blinding light, and Jack found himself staggering backward, crashing into the window. Glass flashed shards of pain in his hand as he braced against the icy surface. "Jack, you can't run from me." The voice echoed. It wasn't just his wife's anymore. It twisted, morphed, until it was a chorus of every regret, every mistake he'd ever made, a deafening reminder that he couldn't escape who he was. Each sound rippled through him, igniting the most vulnerable parts of his soul. Then the train jolted again, this time harder, as if reacting to his fear. The lights strung along the ceiling flickered, dimming and brightening in frantic succession. For a moment, he caught a glimpse of the outside world. The night was utterly black, impenetrable, like a void swallowing hope whole. But an instant later, his heart sank. Dark figures loomed outside, their shapes twisting and melding with the night. Were they real? Or more illusions designed to torment him? I can't, Jack gasped, pressing fingers into his temples, trying to ward off the rising panic. He scanned the crowded cabin, the mournful eyes of those phantom figures boring into him like knives. Their silent condemnation wrapped around him like a never-ending loop of what-ifs and if-onlys. The train lurched again. The sound of metal grinding on metal sent a shiver of dread down his spine. He had to make a decision, face the darkness or dive into the mystery of the fleeting light. The cabin quivered with suspense, and a shuddering breath escaped him one way or another. He had to break free. Suddenly, the door creaked open. A rush of unfiltered air whooshed in, carrying a burning scent, so familiar yet so foreign. She stepped in through the doorway, a young girl, eyes wide. Her clothes were tattered yet filled with a goosebumps-inducing brightness. "Daddy," she whispered, tears glimmering in the faint light, heart pounding. He recognized her immediately. "Lila?" The name slipped from his lips, reverberating in the charged atmosphere. Her presence felt grounding, yet it teetered on the edge of revelation and dread. The shadows whispered louder, thrashing against the walls as little Lila took slow, deliberate steps toward him. "Don't listen to them," she urged, her voice a fragile thread hanging in the chaos. "They want to take you back, to keep you here forever." Jack struggled to comprehend. He was being pulled by a yearning for his daughter, but the weight of sorrow bore down harder. What did it mean to hold hope in a place filled with despair? It felt cruel, the way her image flickered, as if she were a fading photograph. He reached out, his hand trembling. "I'm here, baby. I'm here," he promised, but the words felt hollow. Lila stopped, her expression morphing into sadness. "You have to face your truth. They'll always be there, unless you face them." As the last word settled, the shadows recoiled with a screech that reverberated through the cabin. An anguished wail erupted from the depths of darkness. Jack's heart raced as he felt the ground tremor beneath him, a shaky promise that the train was not done with him yet. He was about to be dragged into something deeper and darker. And the next instant, the walls began to close in, the shadows rushing toward him, and Jack screamed, caught between the reality of his daughter and the unforgiving specters of his past. "No, no. I can't." Panic swelled, and he stumbled back as more figures emerged from the shadows, their eyes glaring with unspeakable horror. What awaited him in that suffocating darkness? Would facing the past set him free, or would it only lead to his demise? The train groaned, the shadows closing in tighter. As the light flickered out completely, a chilling silence settled. Jack felt the air pulse with a dread-filled potential. The final moments loomed before him. The truth was waiting, but at what cost? The darkness swallowed him whole. Jack felt the shadows wrap around his limbs, tugging at him with icy fingers, as if they were tangible tendrils of despair. He gasped, fighting against the crush of night closing in, the weight of his sins dragging him down. Each second he hesitated felt like an eternity, and the familiar scent of smoke and sulfur filled his nostrils, a prelude to the horrors that awaited him. "Lila," he murmured, the name echoing like a prayer. The shadows seemed to falter, pulling back just a fraction, but the moment was brief. The shrill whispers surged back, more frantic now, piercing through the gloom. "Daddy, don't." His daughter's voice rang out again, but it was swallowed by cacophony. Driven by instinct, Jack turned. He had to move, to evade the looming figures pressing in. They reached out with talon-like fingers, each grasping for a piece of him, his guilt, his regret, his failures. With a primal scream, he lunged toward where the door had been, desperate to escape, to flee this nightmare. But with every step he took, the cabin twisted in response. It was a labyrinth of despair, a cruel parody of reality. The flickering overhead lights cast grotesque shadows that danced erratically, forming horrific faces that flashed momentarily and sank back into darkness. Breath hitching, Jack stumbled and fell, skidding across a cold, hard surface. "Face them, Jack." Lila's voice murmured again, softer now, a gentle plea amidst the chaos. You have to stop running. Stifling a sob, he landed on his back, staring up at the ceiling where the lights flickered desperately. Each pop and crackle echoed in his mind, the space distorting as if aware of his fear. The shadows lurked around him, merging into one another. He saw fleeting glimpses of familiar faces, his father, his mother, even friends he had betrayed in life, their eyes filled with hurt and anger. You left us. You abandoned us. The whispers swirled, blending with his own shame-laden thoughts. Jack curled into a ball, pressing his palms over his ears, trying to block them out, but it was useless. Jack! The shout broke through the noise, fierce and commanding. The train jolted again, this time lurching backward as if to snap him into a harsh reality. Lila thrust her tiny hands forward, her face radiant with urgency. I'm here. You can't let them take you. Stand up. In that moment, something within him flickered, a spark ignited by desperation. As his heart raced, he forced himself to his feet. The shadows recoiled, hissing like serpents retreating from light. Jack took a deep breath, confronting his phantoms. I'm not afraid of you. The words erupted from him, and for the first time, he felt a glimmer of power. The phantoms paused, surprise flickering in their hollow eyes. Jack reached inside himself, unearthing memories of joy, of love, and of Lila's laughter. You will not chain me. He yelled, his voice rising above the relentless din. You don't own me. The shadows shivered, and the wailing transformed into a chorus of terror. Jack pushed forward, the weight of his past lifting with every step. Face them, Lila echoed behind him, a heartbeat of faith against the growing storm, but as he moved deeper into the chaos, the cabin shuddered, walls pulsating with a sinister life of their own. With a last scream of defiance, he launched himself toward an enveloping darkness. What lay beyond was uncertain, but Jack knew he had to confront whatever haunted him. Because if he didn't, he felt it. Something more sinister lurking at the edge of that darkness, a glimmer of cold, soulless intent. The shadows began to reform, reshaping into a figure, looming larger than anything Jack had faced before. Foolish man, it hissed, voice like nails across glass. The train screeched to a halt, grinding metal vibrating through Jack's bones. As the figure stepped forward, cloaked in malice, Jack knew he had a choice to make: run deeper into the shadows or stand against a fate far worse than the past he was fighting. What awaited him could very well change everything or end it all in darkness. The figure materialized, its outline sharp against the dim light, towering with an aura of dread. Jack's pulse raced, a low thrum echoing in his ears as he faced the dark embodiment of his fears. It was no longer just the whispers, this was something alive, something that thrived on despair. Who are you? Jack demanded, forcing his voice to remain steady despite the surge of panic. The air crackled with tension. The entity smiled, revealing rows of jagged teeth, a grin devoid of warmth. I am the keeper of your darkness, it hissed, each syllable dripping with malicious delight. I know your failures, your regrets, and I will use them against you. Jack staggered back, intensity rising within him like a wildfire. You don't control me. He shouted, though doubt began to creep into his mind, clawing at his resolve. The shadows writhed at his feet, hungry and eager, almost mocking. You think you can escape? You will always be your own worst enemy, the figure crooned, dragging its fingers across the air like they were skimming the surface of an invisible wound. Jack felt the icy grip of memories flicker in and out, moments buried so deep he had tried to forget. The laughter of his wife mingled with Lila's cries, blending joy and sorrow into a cacophony of heartache. Stop it! He yelled, clenching his fists. Yet even as he shouted, he felt the walls closing in. The shadows quivered and contorted, transforming into mangled reflections of his past, a twisted theater of his mistakes. Face them, Jack. Lila's voice broke through again, more vivid now, a haunting echo full of urgency. You are weak. You will always be weak. The figure advanced, its breath a gust of cold fog that chilled Jack to his core. "No!" he screamed. Summoning every ounce of strength, he reached out to the light within him, the memories of Lila's laughter ringing like a bell in his mind. He saw her joyous twirling, her carefree smile, the way she looked up to him, filled with trust and love. "Lila needs you!" he shouted, pulling that emotion into a shield against the approaching darkness. "You think you can take that from me? You can't." The entity paused, its confidence wavering for a glimmering second. Jack's heart surged as he lunged closer, determined not to let his past dictate his present. "I am not going to let you haunt me anymore." Suddenly, a blinding light erupted from within him, pushing back the shadows like the dawn breaking through the longest night. The figure screeched, a horrifying sound that reverberated with pain. The darkness shattered around Jack, scattering into the corners of the cabin, but not without a last haunting promise. "I will return, and next time, you may not be so lucky." With that, the figure dissolved into a cloud of black mist, retreating into the very fabric of the walls as if the cabin itself had absorbed it. Jack stood panting, the energy swirling around him, uncertain whether he had truly won. Yet lurking just beyond the remnants of his encounter, he felt a pulse, a faint thrum, wet and cold, rippling in the floor beneath his feet. Fear gnawed at him, rising like bile. Was it the shadow, a mere echo, or something new? As he scanned his surroundings, the flickering lights dimmed, leaving him enveloped in dread once again. Was it over? Or had he merely delayed the inevitable? "Things are not as they seem," a voice echoed from the darkness above him, chilling Jack to the bone. With a sinking heart, he realized the journey was far from finished. Whatever awaited him just beyond the shadows, he knew one thing for certain: he had to ready himself for another battle against the malevolence that had marked him as prey. What new horrors would the night train reveal? And could he survive a threat that transcended even his deepest fears? The cabin felt alive, each creak echoing with the weight of Jack's fear. The pulse beneath him grew stronger, almost as if the floor was breathing, beckoning him closer. He could almost hear it whispering secrets, but the words faded into a low growl that churned in his gut. He took a shaky breath, eyes darting to the corners of the room where darkness lingered, thick and oppressive. Shadows danced between the wooden beams overhead, stretching and curling as if they had a mind of their own. The flickering lights hadn't just dimmed, they pulsed like a heartbeat, and he felt the walls closing in around him as panic clawed at his throat. "Get hold of yourself, Jack," he muttered, shaking his head as if to dispel the encroaching dread. The entity had vanished, but its presence was still palpable, etched in the air like a sour aftertaste. Stumbling to the window, he peered outside, hoping to catch a glimpse of the familiar landscapes he once roamed. But night had wrapped its icy fingers around the world, and what lay beyond was an abyss of silent trees, shadows looming like sentinels ready to pounce. The train, which had felt comforting before, now felt like a moving coffin. "Lila," he whispered, squeezing his eyes shut. Memories flooded back: her laughter, the warmth of her hand in his, the cozy evening spent wrapped in each other's arms. He shuddered. It was all gone now, snuffed out like a candle in a storm. A shuffling sound from behind broke his reverie. Jack spun around, heart pounding. The space around him twisted into familiarity, but not in a way that comforted. As if the shadows had formed a manifestation of his fears. There they were, his past mistakes, shadows of himself, each one reflecting a broken promise. "Accept your fate, Jack," a voice echoed, liquid and slippery like an oil slick. It oozed from the corners, seeping into his thoughts. "You can't escape yourself, or the truth." "No," he shouted, denying the dark pull of their words. He staggered backward, terror rising in his chest. Yet, he felt a strength ignite deep within amidst the chaos. Lila's encouraging voice bubbled to the surface of his mind once more. "Find the light. You can beat this. You always could." Clenching his fists, he focused on her voice, the idea of fighting, of survival, chasing away the shadows that stretched towards him. But the pulse beneath the floorboards demanded attention, real and suffocating. It grew more erratic, a primal drumbeat echoing through the cabin, as if summoning something. "No! Get away from me!" Jack shouted, but his words fell into the darkness like feathers, barely making an impact. Suddenly, the lights blinked rapidly, throwing the shadows into a frenzied dance, revealing countless eyes staring back at him, filled with hunger and malice. He felt their collective gaze cold, weighty, demanding. It was a reminder that the darkness wasn't just an entity, it was the amalgamation of every failure, every loss he had ever endured. "Do you really wish to live?" Another voice coiled around him, taunting. "You fear the dark, yet you are its own creation." Jack steadied himself against the wall, breath shallow. This was a fight he couldn't run from, but he couldn't fight an apparition. He was trapped in this cabin, on this night train, with nowhere to turn. The pulse surged again, vibrating through his body, and a crack appeared in the wooden floor. It split open like a maw, revealing an inky void, a gateway to a realm fueled by despair. A shiver ran down his spine. "Embrace it, Jack," the chorus of shadows urged, blending their voices into a haunting harmony of curses and dread. "Join us." He swallowed hard, heart racing wild. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet all that remained was a chilling decision ahead. What if confronting this abyss was his only chance at freedom? With a final deep breath, he stepped closer to the rift. Could he confront the shadows of himself? Or would he be consumed whole? As he teetered on the edge, a flash of light flickered in his peripheral vision, illuminating a figure standing at the far end of the cabin. Fear slammed into him like a freight train. "Jack," the familiar voice called softly. "We are waiting for you." His heart raced as he turned. Who was it? Could he truly embrace what lay before him? The shadows whispered again, hungry for his fear. Something dreadful was about to unfold. Would he find salvation or be pulled into the darkness forever? Jack's heart thundered in his chest, the familiar voice cutting through the cold air of the cabin. He squinted, trying to bring the figure into focus. "Lila?" he called, feeling the name slip from his lips like a prayer. The ghostly light transformed the outline before him into something neither wholly human nor fully shadow. She stood there, a glimmer of warmth amid the overwhelming darkness, yet her eyes glowed too brightly, almost inhuman. "Join me, Jack," she beckoned, her voice a sweet melody amidst the storm of chaos swirling around him. "Together we can end this torment." The shadows swirled and coiled, their whispers growing deafening. "She lies. She can't help you, Jack," they roared, voice overlapping with 1,000 threats. A painful pressure pooled in his chest, urging him to believe the darkness instead. "No. Stop!" he shouted, the sound echoing starkly against the oppressive silence. "You're not real. This is a trick." The figure faltered, her image flickering. "Is it really? Or is this what you fear most? That you will lose me forever?" Jack pressed his palms to his temples, fighting against the tug of her voice, fighting to reclaim his mind. "This isn't real. I am not your prisoner." A storm of frustration built inside him, drowning out the shadow's cries. But the truth hit harder than any word. He was cornered, both by his memories and by the lurking darkness. He had summoned her here, drawn by his guilt. "Look at yourself." Lila's voice, sharper now, sliced past his defenses. "You think you can hide from your failures? All you're doing is running away." The floor beneath him rumbled, and the crack widened, dark fingers reaching up as if trying to pull him down into the void. He teetered, confusion and fear enveloping him like a noose. What would he do? Surrender to the shadows? Free himself by confronting the truth? "Jack, please." Lila's form shimmered, vulnerability bleeding into her voice. "You don't have to be alone. Just take my hand." "Why do you haunt me?" He pressed, feeling the weight of her presence pull him closer, while the shadows raged, clashing against his resolve. You left me. You're dead. I was never gone, she insisted, extending her hand, fingers outstretched toward him. But as he stared into those once warm, loving eyes, he saw the darkness behind them. Grab her hand. Let her pull him into the comfort he craved. Fighting this is pointless. The shadows screamed. Join us now, Jack. Embrace your fate. With every ounce of strength, Jack wrenched his gaze away from Lila, aware that the darkness was easing, it was waiting for him to buckle under the weight of despair. He felt the pulse beneath his feet responding, thrumming aggressively as it grew more demanding. Enough. He bellowed. The command felt like a bolt of lightning, piercing through the cacophony of fears and regrets. Suddenly, the lights flickered and then went dark, plunging the cabin into pitch-black silence. Jack sensed the shift before he heard it, a low rumble, a growl from the depths of that trusting abyss. The shadows recoiled, momentarily stunned. Lila's voice grew faint, distant now. Don't let it consume you, he had to act. Jack clenched his fists, tears stinging his eyes. The darkness surged and crashed like a wave, as though hungry claws reached for him with renewed ferocity. Torn between the specter of his past and the gaping maw of despair, he gathered every ounce of courage left within him. I will not give in. Lila's face twisted in anguish, fading further into the gloom. The shadows responded, fury erupting in a cacophony that shattered the silence, a hellish roar that promised to swallow him whole, and then he felt it. A flicker of light, something pure, something real flickered just beyond the rift. It pulsed, a heartbeat filled with hope. Would it be enough to cut through the darkness? Could he reach that light, or would he stumble deeper into the abyss? As he lunged forward into the void, everything went black. What awaited him on the other side? Would he find freedom, or would he finally face the demons he had long tried to escape? Jack burst through the darkness, arms flailing as he fell into an uncertain space. Wind rushed past him, cold and biting, making every hair on his body stand on end. He hit the ground hard, and pain shot through his shoulder. Still, he forced himself to rise, gasping for breath. The void had given way to a landscape of shadows, a twisted world reflecting the chaos inside him. Gray mist clung to the ground like a living thing, swirling around his feet as he stood up. Where am I? He muttered, voice shaky. The familiar voice of Lila lingered, echoing in his mind, but there was no brightness now, just an oppressive darkness that enveloped him completely. Jack blinked, squinting into the murky abyss. Shapes shifted in the corners of his vision, flitting away as he turned. The air felt heavy, saturated with tension that tightened around his chest. Calm wasn't an option here, the dread was a constant companion. Suddenly, a laugh, low and mocking, sliced through the air. Welcome back, Jack. He spun around, heart racing. Who is there? From the shadows, a figure slinked forward, a smirk caught in the dim light. It was an old man, eyes glimmering with malice. You really thought you could escape, didn't you? You're just like all the others. Others? Jack's breath hitched. What do you mean? The ones who fell into despair. They thought they could run, that they could hide. But this place, he gestured broadly with a grim smile. It feeds off your guilt. Visions flickered in Jack's mind, memories of moments he wished to forget, the shattered glass, Lila's anguished face as she disappeared into the darkness. The weight of his actions settled on him, dragging him deeper into despair. You're lying. Jack shouted, clenching his fists, anger surging. Am I? The man in shadows shrugged, his grin widening. Look around. You're all alone here. No light to guide you. Just the echoes of your choices crawling back to claim you. The laughter echoed again, a deep rumble that mingled with the shadows surrounding Jack. He felt the weight of their eyes, thousands of unseen witnesses, all staring, waiting for him to falter. Join them, the old man urged, his voice a honeyed poison. Join your failures. Make peace with the darkness. It will set you free. No. Jack screamed, the word bursting from him like a lightning bolt. He turned away from the old man and faced the swirling shadows. They twisted and pulsed, hungry for his surrender, desperate for him to give in. He took a step forward, defiance hardening his resolve. I want to let it take me. I want to be just another lost soul. With each word, the shadows thinned. You don't understand. The man cried, voice rising in pitch. This is only the beginning. I can save you if you give in. I can show you how to survive. Survive? Jack shook his head, rage burning in his chest. Survival means facing the truth. It means battling the guilt, not hiding from it. Fool. The old man lunged, hands outstretched, grasping for Jack's collar. But he was quick, he dodged, darting through the wall of shadows. The mist writhed, thickening, reeling back against his movement. He could feel it pushing him, pulling him down. Then, he spotted something in the distance, a flicker of white light, glimmering like a star, beckoning him forward. Jack surged toward it, feeling the weight of the shadows clawing at his back, despair biting at his heels. I can't give up, I can't give in. The faint light grew stronger as he ran. Behind him, the old man's voice howled, a frantic roar of frustrated despair. You'll regret this, Jack. You can't escape what's inside you. You're only delaying the inevitable. Jack pushed harder, heart racing, limbs screaming. The light was close, so close. Could he truly escape? Or would the darkness consume him whole again? The moment his fingers brushed the edge of the light, everything shifted. What unexpected horrors awaited him beyond the glow? Would he rediscover hope or plunge back into the abyss? The moment Jack entered the light, it swallowed him whole. The glow felt warm against his skin, but it wasn't comforting. Instead, it crackled with a strange energy, vibrating through his bones. He closed his eyes, half expecting a shield from the darkness that chased him. But as quickly as it came, the light vanished, leaving Jack in a new layer of shadow and despair. He opened his eyes, struggling to see. A dim, foggy landscape filled his vision, jagged shapes looming ominously in the distance. He was no longer in the void but in a desolate place, like a long-abandoned amusement park, rusting metal rides silenced by time. Broken mirrors lined a dilapidated funhouse, reflecting fractured images of his panicked face. Welcome to the heart of your nightmare, whispered a voice, dripping with malice. Jack turned sharply, every muscle in his body on fire, ready to spring. This time, standing before him was a young girl, ghostly pale with sunken eyes, her hair swirling like smoke. You're not the first to run towards the light, she said, a twisted grin forming. But trusting it leads to more than regret. Jack felt the hairs on the back of his neck prickled. What do you want? He demanded, voice wavering. Oh, dear Jack, it's not about what I want. It's about what you must face. The shadows are always here, lurking, waiting for you to falter, she said, her voice a melodic taunt. You can't merely run from your guilt. You must confront it. With those words, the darkness began to shift. Shadows morphed into familiar faces, friends, family, even Lila, all bearing expressions of betrayal and sadness. Jack's heart sank, his courage wavering. No. This can't be happening. The girl stepped closer, her eyes glinting mischief. You think you're brave, but there's a child in you still afraid of the dark, afraid of the truth you keep buried. No. Jack shouted, clenching his fists. I want to let you manipulate me. But as he shouted, the figures of the past moved closer, almost merging with him. Their whispers grew louder, accusing and relentless. You abandoned us. They cried, shadows wrapping around his legs like chains. Get away. He yelled, struggling against the weight of his memories. He needed to escape this clutches of guilt. He had to keep moving, then the ground beneath him shifted violently, startling Jack. He stumbled back, narrowly avoiding a deep, gaping chasm that yawned before him. How far did it go? He could hear the faintest wails of the spirits trapped below, each cry a reminder of the lives he could not save, each one a needle of guilt stabbing deeper into his heart. Foolish boy. The abyss only awaits the weak. The girl's laughter rang through the air, echoing around him. Jack's mind raced as he fought to suppress their voices, pushing against the tide of memories. I will not be another lost soul. He shouted, feeling renewed strength surge within him. He turned back toward the twisted funhouse to escape, but as he did so, the doors creaked open, revealing a tunnel swirling with darkness. Something was waiting inside, a presence ready to seize the chance to consume him wholly. With a deep breath, he plunged forward into the unknown, hoping this was the bridge to freedom. Would he escape the horrors of his past, or would he be doomed to join those lost in despair? The thrill of fear enveloped him as he raced toward whatever waited within. The truth was just ahead, but at what cost would it be revealed? Jack plunged into the tunnel, darkness closing in around him like a smothering blanket. The air tasted metallic, thick with the weight of his regrets. Ghostly whispers surged forward, but with each step he took, a flicker of bravery ignited within him. He felt the shadows writhe behind him, hungry for his surrender, but he pushed on, seeking a glimmer of truth, something solid to grasp. As he forged deeper into the void, the shadows began taking shape, forming grotesque figures that mirrored his every mistake. He saw the faces of his past, friends he had disappointed, family he'd let down, and Lila, the daughter he hadn't been there for when it mattered most. Jack's heart ached as guilt pierced his chest, each specter whispering accusations, clawing at him like frenzied animals. Why did you leave us? They chorused, voices warbling with pain, adding layers to the suffocating darkness. Shut up! He screamed, anger rising, mixing with despair that threatened to drown him. I'm done running. I want to let you haunt me. The tunnel warped in response, twisting and tangling, but Jack steeled himself, remembering Lila's bright laughter, the twinkle in her eyes when she looked at him. He longed for the warmth of that love, the hope that was abundant before the darkness took hold. With each step, he refused to be sucked back into the web of despair. I am not afraid of you. He roared, voice echoing, breaking the hold of those faces. Then, ahead, a light pierced the murk, drawing him in with a promise of clarity. Was it real? Or another trick from the shadows? He could see it shimmering, a safe haven amidst the chaos. He sprinted toward the light, sweat dripping down his brow, breath coming in ragged spurts. With every step, he felt their grasp weakening, the dark specters flailing behind him, torn between their desire to drag him back and the fierce determination that surged within him. Jack! A voice called to him, radiant in the midst of the nightmares. It was Lila. He stumbled, suddenly feeling lighter, overwhelmed by that familiar warmth. You can do it. Just reach for me. She cried, arms stretched wide, a beacon of hope in the swirling dark. As Jack moved forward, determination surging through his veins, he saw the faces fading into the murk. With one last, powerful thrust of will, he surged into the light, grasping onto Lila. In that instant, the dark figures screeched, their cries echoing like a death knell, fading into nothingness as he collided with her warm embrace. Daddy! Lila beamed, filled with a fierce love that erupted like a firework in his heart. Jack's breath hitched as he looked into her bright eyes, free of shadows. We can be free, together, she whispered. You just need to accept everything, face it all, then we can finally be free. The world around them brightened as Jack realized that facing his guilt didn't mean surrendering, it meant reclaiming his power. I accept my past, he declared, voice steady, undeniable. I won't let it control me anymore. With those words, an explosion of light flooded the space, engulfing him and sending a shockwave through the darkness. The shadows hissed and recoiled, their hold shattered. Jack felt the liberating rush of air filling his lungs. He was breaking free. You're alive, Jack thought, heart racing. He turned to see the specters drawn into a swirling maelstrom before retreating completely, their shape crumbling into darkness as he embraced the truth he had long avoided. Suddenly, he was standing in the familiar gardens of his home, the shearing brightness illuminating the surroundings like the dawn. He turned to Lila, and his heart swelled with warmth. Her laughter rang in his ears like the sweetest melody. "Daddy!" She jumped into his arms, her joy echoing around them. Tears streamed down his cheeks, the burden of guilt lifting like fog in the sun. "I love you, Lila. I'll never let you go again." As they stood together in the brilliant light, Jack felt the last vestiges of despair dissipate. "You're safe now," he whispered, filled with a rock-solid promise that reverberated in his heart. The past would always be a part of him, but it no longer held power over his present. He faced the shadows, and in that confrontation, he found strength. No longer would he ride the midnight train of despair, he was stepping into the light of a new dawn, and as they walked together, hand in hand, Jack felt hope flutter within him, realizing he was finally free to love and be loved without the chains of his past holding him back. Jack turned to the horizon, a boundless future stretching out before them, a road paved with possibilities and bright again together. If you connected with Jack's journey, you need to subscribe now. Each story sets the stage for more incredible journeys like this. Smash that like button now so you can help more awesome content reach friends and fellow fans. Flood the comments with your thoughts and theories about Jack's journey. Your opinions matter, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. True fans understand that your support keeps this amazing journey going.